Welcome into another episode of Behind the Wheel, sponsored by Bobby Rail Honda of State College. You need a vehicle, go on down there, tell them Landon sent you. They will take care of you. Today, my guest, host of the obligatory pregame show, Chris Buchanani. What's up, Booch?
What's happening, Landon? How you doing?
You know, just hanging out, bye week, feeling good. I figured this would be a good time for us to take a ride around State College. Let's talk a little bit of Penn State football.
I love it. I like this trading we're doing. You come do our show, I come do your show.
It's a good time. A little less beer on the show because we were operating a motor vehicle, so you know that's a good option.
This is coffee from the cheese shop, okay? I did not Irish this up at all.
So, Booch, we are 8 days away, about 7 away from the biggest game of the season for Penn State. Let me just get your overall feelings. Are you one of those people that came away from these first 3 games in a panic, in a slight worry? Are you completely not worried at all? What is your feeling of where we are at right now?
Yeah, definitely not panicked, but fair to say slight worry for 2 reasons. I feel great about the defense. I understand they're playing inferior competition, but the guys running around having no idea what their assignments are and what they're doing that we were promised by all the Twitter fans from Ohio State, that has not manifested itself at all. So it is really important to remember that what Jim Knowles took over at Oklahoma State, which is in the Big 12 and plays no defense, and even at Ohio State when he got there, their defense was way behind the standard you would expect from that program. So the raw material for him to work with here and the experience, the talent, totally different situation. Plus, it's his 3rd time through. Defense, I feel really good about. Honestly, Landon, the O-line, I don't worry about either because we've talked about that a lot. The lack of preparation time you get in the preseason and just the contact, the in-game experience you need to get banged up a little bit and be against guys across from you who are trying to win the game, even if they're not going to be able to because they don't have the horses. They've improved week over week, right? I'm not worried about that group. I also think probably a learning curve for Anthony Donko, coming back off injury, playing a new position. And we're seeing that Shanahan, the kid they brought in from Texas A&M, I think he's going to factor in there, but not worried about the O-line. And even the run game, for all the struggles that Nick Singleton is having now, and it's no secret, we've seen him do it so much. And Kaytron Allen just looks as good as he ever has. I don't worry about the run game. The biggest concern I have is just, that Tyler Donahue stat he posted on Twitter a couple weeks ago about Drew Allar's completion percentage his last several games.
We'll put that up on the screen right now. Shout out Tyler, last guest on the show. I think it's valid. And I'll even say this, too, about the Nick Singleton. I actually said this on Lions 24/7 with Tyler earlier this week, that even if Nick Singleton doesn't find his way back to where he was before, I don't even think it's that big of an issue. I mean, yes, you are missing your home run hitter, but as we say, Kaytron Allen is just so good. I think the run game is going to be fine, and I do agree the offensive line is going to be fine. So it's not as detrimental to the offense if Nick Singleton does not return to form as if Drew Allar doesn't. I don't necessarily want to say return to form because I think it's a fair critique that I've seen from other people. I put out the film breakdown and I said, this is why I think Drew Allar can still be one of the best quarterbacks in college football. And there was one comment that I saw that said, can you really point to a ton of different moments where he has been elite? And I thought that was fair. I mean, USC, I would say is one. I wouldn't even call the Oregon game necessarily elite. I mean, the 2 interceptions that he had, one was at the end and one was a pick. I don't think you can call that game elite for him. So, I mean, what are we looking at? 1 elite performance in, through 2 and now almost a half year starting?
And to be fair, a lot of very solid performances that just sort of fade into the background because of the quality of opposition that he faced.
That is a very good point.
Although, how about this? The knock on Allar, and it's valid because you can go back and look at the statistics, the numbers don't lie, is that he's pedestrian or worse in the biggest games and plays well against the Joker opponents. Well, so far this season, his completion percentage, his numbers haven't been great against the Jokers. So what if we just flip the paradigm and he only plays great against top competition? I'll take it.
Booch, that's good with me. Let's go with that one. Let's go that's going to happen. I'm with that one.
We are hope dealers.
Yeah, we might. Yeah, that's what we're doing. It's the bye week. Why not? Let's be a little positive here. Talking about hope, coming into Oregon. In your mind, is this a must-win? And I don't think it is a must-win in terms of, yes, if we lose, we can absolutely still go to the college football playoffs. But how I see it, it's almost a must-win for me because of the tone that it sets for the season for the guys. If you have a struggle through the first 3 weeks, even though we kind of destroyed everybody, as far as the stat sheet is concerned, but, we saw what we saw with the offense.
Yeah.
How do you feel if there's a win, a loss? Like, what is your mindset coming into this week against Oregon?
Before I answer it, there was just one other point I wanted to make about the run game before I forget.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, in the week leading up to the Penn State game, Dan Lanning and his staff, they're going to be telling everybody on Oregon's defense, you cannot look at the tape this season from Nick Singleton and assume that's the back you're defending when you go out there Saturday night under those lights. They're going to have to honor the player they know Nick Singleton to be. So when he's out there, it's not like they're going to be assuming that the guy who has struggled through the first 3 weeks of this season is the one they're facing that night. But
that's a good point. I guess I want to add this too, and I'm going to cover this in the pregame show that you guys will see here Sunday. But I think Drew Allar's going to run a decent amount. If you remember, he ran a good couple times against Oregon where he kept the ball and knifed. I think they're going to be looking at a lot of the tape from last year and saying, all right, we got to look at this. Drew Allar only one designed run for, I believe, 0 yards so far in these first 3 games.
Yep.
I think that's something to keep an eye on. I do think that is going to be factored in, and we're going to see some new pieces of what we've all called a vanilla offense up to this point. But sorry, so back to Oregon. The outlook, is it a must-win for you?
Here's why, if we can classify anything as must-win, we can do so for Oregon. It's because of 2 factors. Number one, I know 1-0 every week, ignore the outside noise. There is zero question. The national narrative around our quarterback and our head coach is something that they themselves are aware of and the whole locker room is aware of. And it's a vibe that's around here. You and I and everyone in the press talks about it.
I can't imagine seeing that stuff. Like, as an offensive lineman, I can't relate. I look up my name and be like, I'd see one tweet from Audrey Snyder or something, from the game. But I can't imagine going on social media as James Franklin or Drew Allar. That's got to be difficult. Any normal sane person, I would understand why big time quarterbacks and head coaches don't entertain media at all and go on social media, because that has to be toxic.
In the spirit of selling hopium, since James has gotten here, all he has done, especially in the last 5 seasons, is go through the laundry list of critiques and knocks on him. He can't win out of the bye week. He's going to drop a game he shouldn't lose every single season, and he's just ticking them off. He's been crossing everyone off, and the last one is cannot win the big game against a marquee opponent. So you gotta get that out of the way early, and we have the best opportunity you could imagine, because we're going to have them in our building at night in the whiteout with a new quarterback facing that experienced Jim Knowles coached defense. So I think just for the psychological aspect of getting that monkey off the back of our quarterback and our coach, that's big. But then extending that, the other thing is just for the entire team, at some point or another, they've got to be able to know, based on actual results that have occurred on the field, that they can do this thing if they're going to go win the national championship. And I understand the way the playoffs work. Maybe you get a little help around the country. You finish 10-2, losing to Oregon and Ohio State. You may still get in and get your shot, and everyone will say, oh, look at what Ohio State did last year. Well, everybody in that locker room knew they could win a big game. I think this team just has to be able to know they can do it. And if they drop this one, psychologically, what does that do for you when you go on the road in Columbus or, whatever, down the line? You're facing a top 10 quality team. You're playing a Miami or an LSU in the playoffs. You've got to know you can win that game, that you belong on the field with them. And if you have already lost at home in front of a whiteout crowd, what is that going to do to you mentally? I'm not saying they can't overcome it, but that is going to be a tall order. So, must win.
I'm with you there. I think confidence is the most important thing in sports. I truly believe that. If you are uber confident and maybe you don't have all the talent, you can still get stuff done. You can fake yourself into telling yourself, hey, I can do this. I can win this matchup. I can win this game. But like you said, you lose this one, and we already have. We don't need to get into it, but James Franklin's already mentioned that we have clearly some confidence issues on the team with certain guys and, not fully trusting themselves. Losing this one would not help that in any way, shape, or form. And I do want to add, you said earlier, the defense. I am excited to see Jim Knowles' defense against Will Stein, Oregon's offensive coordinator, which did really well, clearly, in the playoffs against Oregon there. And I'll say this, Jim Knowles' first-team defense hasn't allowed any points. I think 0, right? I mean, we've led the 2 touchdowns. Nevada was right at the end with the backups in, and then the fatal final play for all the underbetters in Penn State with the points.
The brutal backdoor cover.
Oh,
one of the worst of all time.
That's up there. That kid for Villanova is going to be telling his grandkids about that one, but he's going to tell them it was like for the game winner. But who cares at that point? So we talked about the magnitude of coming into this Oregon game, Booch. You are the Penn State historian teaching Penn State football history.
Yes.
Gonna have to get in that class at some point in time. Can you look back and compare where we are sitting going into Oregon to any other time in Penn State football history?
Yeah, you asked me this question about the magnitude of this game and the kind of the must-win quality of it. And it is tough, right? Because we had the same coach for so long, and he established his credentials. And so, make no mistake, a lot of our fans lose perspective on this. There was a ton of critique around Joe Paterno for well over a decade that he couldn't win the big game. In fact, that's what they said about him after we went undefeated in '78 and lost to Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. And he was very aware of it, just like the head coach we have right now. In fact, the session I just taught in my history class, I show a quote from his autobiography where he talks about all the criticism he was getting that he couldn't win the big game after he lost that Sugar Bowl. So, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes, maybe. But when I think about maybe not a prove-it game for Joe Paterno, but a game that had as much pressure and consequence for the season, I go back to the '94 year when Penn State goes out to Michigan in the 6th game of its season, because Penn State had started 5-0 the previous 2 seasons and then lost their 6th game. And again, Joe didn't have to prove anything to anybody, but he was getting up there in years, and there were starting to be talk about how much longer is he going to keep doing this. And that was a time period where he had just come off, for the first time in his career, a full 5-year recruiting cycle where the players who had come in the class of '89 was the first to play for Joe and never play for a national championship or go undefeated. And that was something he told every class of recruits. Every recruiting class I have brought in has done at least one of those 2 things. So the question was, he just slipping a little bit. And we were in our 2nd year in the Big Ten.
That's a hell of a standard, by the way, a natty or undefeated season. Let's just talk about how great Joe Paterno was, but sorry, continue.
Yeah, no doubt. And so 2nd year of conference play, we're joining this 100-year-old oldest conference in the country that a lot of people didn't want us to be in because they didn't like change. It had been, and probably still is, run by Michigan and Ohio State. Both of them had beaten us in our inaugural football season in '93. In fact, Michigan had come into Beaver Stadium. It was one of the most preposterous games in the program history because our crowd got a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for being too loud.
Oh, no.
When Michigan was trying to snap the ball, Penn State got flagged for its fans making too much noise. You can see how much things have changed.
Shout out 2019. That's absolutely insane.
So just a little bit of question of, everything's still great, but is it great like we've become used to? And so Penn State goes out to Michigan and wins a 4-quarter classic. Shout out Bobby Ingram winning with the game-winning touchdown reception. Goon loves to talk about they were exhausted after that game because it was one of the only times the O-line had to play all 4 quarters that season. But that was a turning point for Penn State. Number one, to declare that they belonged with the big boys of the conference. And number 2, to get over that 5-0 and then you lose game 6 pattern that had started to become established. And the good news for Penn State fans as we talk about this as a must-win game against the Ducks is that we don't got to go out on the road and face them in Outson. We got them in Beaver Stadium, under the lights, in front of the whiteout. As I said, could not be set up better. And the question is, over this bye week, Can everybody on the team just take a little bit of a deep breath, get their heads right, and just play in the moment, not worry about all the pressure and outside expectation? Just playing football.
Just play ball. Just do what you've done since you were 8 years old. That's all we need from these guys. We are just as talented. I think we got the better coaching staff overall. This is going to be one for the ages. It has the feeling, the making of it. The first really big whiteout since 2019, I'd say. And I remember being there as a recruit and just getting chills down all my body watching Michigan trot out for that first play and have to call a timeout. And hopefully we recreate another iconic moment like that.
And I will tell you what, brother. I have been in the stadium for 2 top 5 matchups. When Arizona came up for the season opener, the Pigskin Classic in 1999, and then last season when we played Ohio State. It is just not the same playing those games when the sun is up. This is the way it should be done. As much as possible, play these games under the lights. The fans, we all have a very small little part to play. So if you're going to be there in 2 weeks or whenever you're watching this, if you're going to be there for Penn State, Oregon, make sure you bring the Thunder.
Let's go. I'm excited for that one. Booch, let's look a little bit ahead. Hopefully we take care of Oregon. We go on a short week, technically. You got to leave early. We're going out to UCLA, which, let's talk a little bit around college football. UCLA,
that team stinks.
Yeah, they're bad,
Good
man.
Lord.
Which is why, for me,
Deshaun Foster.
Oh, I don't know. Was this just a
That
bad
guy
situation?
ripped the Eagles up in the 2003 NFC Championship game, and I still feel bad for him. The situation that guy was put in.
You're not able to win there, and so we're going out there. I think I know I'm going to get comments kind of making fun of me for this. I think it makes it even more of a trap game. Not one that we'd actually lose, but you turn around from what is hopefully an emotional win against Oregon, and you got to leave on Thursday. You got to go cross country. We're probably going to be talking about the State College airport runway.
You can't even fly
out of state. James Franklin spends half of his Monday presser talking about the runway, and then next thing you know, we're in a 33-30 overtime shootout against UCLA. But what is your take, honestly, overall? We'll talk UCLA, but also our guy Brent Pry. Those are the 2 head coaches that have been fired. Just what's kind of feeling overall on where college football is at right now? And now those players can go into the transfer portal. They can't play this season if they wanted to leave, but they can, have a red shirt for this year. What's your overall take kind of on all of that?
It's wild to me that the UCLA and Virginia Tech jobs are as generally unattractive as they are right now. A lot of people lose perspective on the fact that Frank Beamer had them winning double-digit games every season for a decade, this century. It wasn't that long ago. And within the last 6 months, their AD has gone in front of their board of trustees and basically begged for money just to maintain relevancy. And that's it. The gap between the haves and the have-nots is really starting to widen again as a result of NIL and media rights deals. The SEC and the Big Ten are just making so much more money than any of the other conferences. So to me, it's who knows where the sport ends up, but it's kind of sad to see programs with that much history and tradition, and they're less than an afterthought. So yeah, it's going to be tough to go cross country and face a team in an empty stadium. That's no juice there at all. But I immediately think about Penn State right after the huge whiteout upset of number 2 Ohio State in 2016. The next week, that team had to go out to West Lafayette and play a lousy Purdue team, and they struggled the whole first half. You could tell the whole hangover from the emotion and the travel and being in an empty stadium and playing a team you knew you were good enough to beat the snot out of. And then the second half opens and Saquon Barkley rips off a long scoring run, and we just beat the brakes off them. I think that's the kind of game UCLA could be. It's not going to be a trap game where we're in an overtime contest.
I'm with you on that one. I think you
want to be a serious, you want to be a serious bowl team, let alone be a serious playoff contender. You got to beat that UCLA squad. But yeah, first half could be a little ugly.
I'm with you on that one. I think knowing how we get down with most of those type of games, maybe you go first half under there, Booch. Shout out Brent Pry. Not the worst situation is what I will say, to be told you're fired, but take $6 million on your way out.
How about it?
And go sit on the beach. Shout out Dabo. I'm not going to go to the beach. He said, well, our boy Pry is on the beach. But not a horrific situation for him. And fun fact, first loss is to Ricky Ronnie at ODU and last loss.
First and final
loss. I mean, look at the Franklin disciples taking each other out here, man.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
I'm looking forward to the rest of this season, Booch. I think we are going to. This is what I compared it to for Penn State. If you are worried right now, if you don't feel uber confident, I do not blame you. What I'm hoping this resembles is last year when everybody said Abdul Carter sucks at defensive end. He's not good. He needs to go back to linebacker. This is a travesty. I'm hoping that's how we compare how we felt from these first 3 games. Of like, oh wait, that happened. Like Penn State struggled those first 3 games. I didn't remember that after they beat Oregon and Ohio State and the #1 team in the nation, and after a national championship win. Once again, we are going to take our optimism right now. We're going to take our healthy dose of optimism, Booch.
Yeah, I'll just say this. Other than if you were going to be fortunate enough to be in the stadium when Penn State plays Oregon, when you can make that tiny little difference by helping make it a hostile environment, there is not a damn thing you can do other than maybe send your prayers and positive vibes to change how Penn State plays in that game. But the number of times we get a week like we're going to get leading up to that game is very small. It's a rare and precious commodity that's experienced by only a small number of college football fan bases ever, let alone with the frequency that a school like Penn State does find itself lucky enough to get. So just enjoy it. Don't sit around worrying with stomach acid accumulating about what happens if we lose. We'll get to the outcome of the game when we get there. Until then, just have a great time and enjoy being a Nittany Lion.
Fantastic advice, Booch. Couldn't have said any better myself. Appreciate you guys tuning into this one. We will probably see me on Obligatory again soon here next week,
sure.
I guess, for Oregon pregame. And until then, you guys enjoy the bye week. Take care of yourself. Enjoy some college football. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.